this is very normal. South Africa is an anti-black racist country, and I think what has shifted is something in the black psyche. Black people are no longer willing to accept to be insulted without responding to the insults. But to say it's new or it's isolated cases is to misunderstand South Africa, is to misdiagnose what this country is about. This country was built on racism. 1652, when white people arrived here, the first thing they did is to take our land and turn us into slaves and workers and servants for themselves. And that created the two, if you like, complexes. A superiority complex for white people and an inferiority complex for black people. In 1994, we did not resolve that matter. So institutionally, at the level of power, you have racism, which takes care of the interests of white people and gives them arrogance. And if you look with naked eyes, South Africa remains divided. Black people are in their townships, in their squatter camps. White people are in the suburbs. This is true with the economic structure, including land ownership. 22 years later, nothing has changed. So, no, this is not an aberration. It is, in fact, what South Africa is.
Ernst?
Well, I think I've experienced in the past already that Andile has a very selective memory when it comes to history, and that he only picks those aspects that he feels will strengthen his argument.
Kind of arrogance.
But I can use the same argument that he used. I can use to say South Africa is an anti-white country. I don't believe this is a new thing. It's very unfortunate what we saw the last few weeks on social media, and it must be condemned in the strongest possible terms. But for us, it's been something that's been plaguing us as an organization for several years. We had, for example, this Chris Hart tweet, which I think is very debatable whether that's racist or not. But then we have, there's this outcry saying he's a racist because he said there's an entitlement problem. But the people responding to his tweet are saying to him, we're going to murder all the white people, or we're going to come and kill your family to teach you a lesson. But there's not the same type of outcry. So our experience is we must condemn all forms of racism. And from AfriForum side, we have condemned some of the tweets and things that we have seen on social media, purported by white people. But we sometimes get the impression that we're the only organization or institution criticizing or condemning white racism as well as black racism. So I think the only way to move forward is to really look at it collectively, and not simply to paint a picture where only one group is right and the other group is incorrect.
Mgxitama?
I'm just flabbergasted by Ernst, quite frankly, who's obviously flying over the sparrow's nest. If he thinks that Andile is selected from history, I think that he is not even selecting from history at all, let alone badly selecting from history. The truth is exactly what Andile said. It's not up for debate. South Africa is founded on colonialism, not just apartheid. The anti-black racism that Andile rightly talks about actually goes much longer into our history than even the arrival of the Nats on the political scene. And so in the year 2016, we live in a country that is saturated with racism, institutional racism, systemic racism, racism in all our social spaces, interpersonal racism. What is deeply troubling about the situation is that just last night and again this morning in a press statement, we hear from the presidency that apparently racism is no big deal, fewer than 5 private individuals are racist, and we hear from a spokesperson from the presidency the bizarre view that institutional racism was crushed in 1994. So on the one hand, you have the ANC government living in cloud cuckoo land, and on the other hand, you have people like Ernst here believing that the volumes of racism against white people are morally equivalent and in volume the same level as racism against black people. So you've got to ask yourself, if you're an ordinary black South African citizen, where do you look to? You've got white people who are unrepentant about their racism, and you have an ANC government that is in denial about the country that it is governing.
You see, just to clarify, you're saying that morally, am I understanding you correctly, when you made the moral remark that black people have a bigger moral standing to be racist than white people, or what do you mean with that?
No, I'm saying in the first instance, any South African who come onto TV who wants to have a conversation about white people being victims of racism are in the same position as a man coming onto TV and wanting to have an urgent national conversation about sexism against men. You are just utterly misplaced. In theory, women can be sexist. In theory, black people are capable of racism. Andile and I disagree slightly on that conceptually, but the reality is that that the actual victims empirically of racism in this country and globally are black people. So when I see a phenotypical white man like yourself coming on TV wanting to prioritize the experiences of white people that are minuscule, it tells me a lot about how ahistorical you are, exactly the accusation you were leveling against Andile.
I think we're wasting a lot of time listening to voices of beneficiaries of racism who, if we're serious as black people in this country and we're a black majority, we should not listen to at all. White people have an incapacity to understand the race question because they're beneficiaries. This man and his family benefited from land theft of black people.
Where?
I mean, all white people, the land they have is stolen land. Now, we are not going to have a conversation with land thieves. You don't discuss with thieves. You get justice, you get land back. And this is what we must go to. I think it's a fundamental difference between myself and Eusebius on this question. Black people cannot be racist. We're not dealing with a theoretical postulation. We're dealing with a real historical context which has happened here, which is continuing to happen. White people have the power. They got their power from colonialism, from land theft, from violence. Black people are dispossessed, and therefore we need justice. And continuing with racism, as we see in the past 20 years, means that white arrogance continues. So blacks can't be racist, we're victims of racism. In the same way, I accept women are victims of sexism. We can't come around and say, oh, this woman is being sexist. She might have sexist ideas. She has no power to be sexist. She is a victim of sexism. So I think we must be clear. And it's a big mistake if we don't do this. Black people cannot be racist. We have no capacity to be racist. We are victims of racism. Let's correct that. And we cannot correct that with listening to white racists. It's a shocking thing that on a national television we actually give airtime to racists. These people should be locked up, in fact.
But I think he has a right to be heard.
No racists have any right to be heard. In the same way that you don't see, precisely my point. We have white arrogance. Because it comes from white power, and that comes from colonialism and land theft. Until we solve that problem, we're going to have so many individual acts of racism, including being insulted every single day by white people, because they have this institutional power.
Ernst, I want you to just make your case. Make your case for what you believe has led us to where things are at the moment, including saying whether or not you acknowledge that history at the very least led us to where we are today.
I'll do that, but just briefly, I think the worst form of racism possible is if you argue that your race is so superior that you are somehow excluded from the very definition of racism. And that's why, and I know people sometimes get very angry that when we use the term black privilege, and it's only in response to the white privilege debate. If a white person made the same type of comments about black people that this man is making about white people, he would not have any platform or any podium at all. But Andile has the privilege to be racist, and he has these platforms to speak about these podiums, to speak from podiums
so
like
you.
this.
You hear.
No, well, I'm not saying the type of things that he's saying about. I'm not saying about black people what he's saying about white people. I'm trying to solve the problem. He's just bashing at white people.
You stole land. You still have our land. 20 years later.
I think what brought us here,